Oi, you're back! Boy, do I have a video for you. We all know that the cos he lives is absolutely biting, and we're all trying to save a $1 do or two. So, I've collaborated with the viewer, Jason, absolute legend, and we are going to be going through how to make a cheap as chips on the bike energy drink for you. Cooking channel content, here we go.
Join and feel the hype.
So this video is inspired by a GCN video that was made a few years back. You can probably see it in the background here, and it will also be up here and link in the description. Now, they made a big day out mix. Basically, how can you get all of your energy needs on the bike? Their mix included 500 grams of maltodextrin powder, 120 grams of MCT powder, 100 grams of fructose, 5 grams of salt, and 450 mils of water, which brings this mix to the princely sum of $25.42 per bottle. Now that's criminal. Absolutely criminal. So, Jason sent me over the ingredients for his mix, which includes white sugar, coconut water, full cream milk, coconut milk powder, and table salt. And that's full cream milk powder. This comes to $2.43 a bottle.
Finish him.
Now we're cooking with gas. So, let's get stuck in. Okay, so the mixture apparently can get a little bit clumpy. So I've got a low heat pan going just to help mix it all together. And we're gonna start with the coconut water. Okay, so next up is your milk powder. Depending on what kind of riding you're gonna do, you may sort of adjust this, but we're using a half cup. Now my kids have cracked my half cup measure, so I've done 2 quarter cups into 1 full cup. We're going to put that in, and we will give that a bit of a stir. Right, so this is future Aiden just sliding in here to say I stuffed up the ratios of milk powder and sugar, so you need to flip those to get the right mix. Still tasted good. Already it's clumping up a bit, so I'm glad I'm doing it this way. And the recommendation is to give it a bit of a shake each time you have a drink of it before you get stuck in. Okay, so from here we're adding 1/3 of a cup of sugar. Shouldn't need to tell you what the sugars do, but basically this is your carbohydrates. Okay, now next up is a 1/4 tablespoon of salt. However, it wasn't going to sit well, so I've put that into a small cup. We're going to add the 1/4 tablespoon of salt. Now again, depending on heat, how much salt you feel like you're going to have to replace through sweat, and also just based on taste, you need to sort of adjust this depending on what you like and what you find easy to digest, because at the end of the day, the most important thing when it comes to consuming fuel on your rides is that you're able to digest it comfortably, because otherwise you're not going to drink it. As a result, you're going to bonk. So let's chuck this salt in. Okay, so the last thing we're going to chuck in is the coconut milk powder. Now you just need 1 sachet of this, and this is apparently 45% MCT, or medium chain triglyceride, I think. And what this is essentially saturated fat, so it's your fats. So this is way cheaper than MCT powder, and pretty much apparently does the same thing. So let's get it in. Okay, so these measurements are to make 750 mils of mixture. So obviously if you're making 500 mils, then you cut it down. If you're making a litre, then you increase, you adjust as required. And I'll put the recipe in the description. This coconut milk powder is really not mixing. Alright, so that's not mixing too well. It's just not combining, so we're going to go to plan B, which is NutriBullet. Let's go. Kind of feel like I should just have done that from the off. Anyway, that is your mix. 750ml bottle, you mix it with water to fill it up, and there you go. That's it done. Quick taste test, I guess. It's probably a bit hot. Actually tastes pretty good. It definitely needs some water, it's quite thick, but that's actually pretty nice. Anyway, we'll test it out tonight on the sushi tray. So you're here still, which means that, you know what, you're getting a few shits and a few giggles out of this video, and it would be much appreciated if you could go and hit that subscribe button. We're on the road to 1,000. We are only 150 short, and you could be one of the people that gets us there. You have the opportunity to affect actual change. Alright, if all you came here for was to stick it to GCN or to find out whether I threw up drinking this or not, too bad, I didn't. You could probably click away now, but leave a like on the way out. Now, if you're here for the sciencey stuff, then I reckon this is where you're gonna really like this video, because we get into what we're actually doing in regards to all of this stuff, and we talk to someone who is significantly smarter than me. So, yeah, let's go. So this video is the brainchild of a viewer. That viewer is Jason, who wrote in suggesting I feature this ghetto mix. He was influenced by a GCN video, which I'll link in the description and also should pop up in one of those corners. I've broken down the price of our drink today at roughly $2.43. And for comparison, the GCN mix, as mentioned, is $25.52 per bottle, if my maths is correct. So, Jason, why don't you introduce yourself, quickly run through your potentials, and in basically, who the fuck are you to tell anyone what they should be putting in their drinks?
Perfectly fair question, mate. Perfectly fair question. So I'm an exercise science student at Griffith Uni. Not yet qualified, obviously, still a student, but have long had a fascination with human anatomy and physiology, hence the reason for doing the degree. I'm also doing a certificate in fitness through TAFE, which helps fill in a few other gaps in that degree program that are relative to where I ultimately want to go career-wise. But yeah, I've experimented on myself over many years with things like nutrition and training and all the rest of it. And when I saw that GCN video probably a couple of years ago and decided that it looked pretty good. Occasionally, I do some long training rides out in the Gold Coast hinterland, and there's nowhere to get food. So unless you sort of, pack a backpack or stick your pockets full of stuff, you've really got no hope if you start to bonk out the back of the hills. Hence the decision to try my own version of the drink because the 2,500 calories in the GCN mix was just a bit extreme. So yeah, mine's a bit lower on the energy, but of course you can ramp it up or down to suit as you see fit.
Yeah, and we'll get to that. I'm similar. I don't run a very big saddlebag, and I don't. So a lot of my stuff goes in my pockets, and so carrying food in there as well is annoying. So I'm attracted to the idea of being able to carry your food in your drink. I also find it easier to drink on a ride than I do to eat on a ride, playing around with packaging and that kind of stuff. So I think there is sort of an element there that is very appealing. So your drink has sort of 5 key ingredients. So would you mind taking us through the Cliff Notes version of why each of these are important? I know we could get super sciencey here, but let's keep it as brief as we possibly can.
Sure, no worries. So yeah, so the main ingredient and the source of carbohydrates is the white sugar. I mean, it could be raw sugar as well. It doesn't really matter. It's the same mix, typically a 1-to-1 mix or pretty close to that of glucose and fructose. It's there as a sweetener as well, but it's primarily your source of carbs. Your coconut water, that's my personal preference. I think it helps enhance the taste. It certainly complements the flavour of the coconut milk powder that you put in there, which we'll talk about in a sec. The other reason that I include it is a good source of potassium. The roughly 250 mils or so that I use in a bottle is 500 milligrams of potassium, and that's really, really good amount of potassium to have in an electrolyte drink if that's what you want to use it for. You can, of course, skip that completely. I just happen to really, really like it. And potassium and sodium are two of the most important electrolytes from a performance perspective. So I just don't think there's any harm in having a bit in the bottle.
So I can vouch for the taste here. Absolutely delicious. But just for another reference to this drink, my wife said that at any time if I make it, I'm more than happy to freeze it and turn it into ice cream for her. She said it was absolutely delicious.
Yeah.
So yeah, it certainly does add a level of flavour that is really appealing.
Yeah, yeah. And the full cream milk powder, again, that's something that I've chosen to add primarily as a source of energy, the fats in the milk powder. It does have carbohydrates in the milk powder as well, but mainly for the fats. So in your lower zone rides or in a longer ride where you've got a fair amount of lower zone content, that's going to help beef up the fats that are in the coconut milk powder just to provide that energy source when you're not working quite so hard. And the source of calcium in the full cream milk powder, again, if you're wanting a more complete electrolyte drink, calcium is really important from a muscle contraction perspective. It's the key electrolyte in muscle contraction. So if your diet's already really, really good and you're consuming plenty of dairy, it's not an absolute necessity. But if you want a bit of an energy boost in the drink, and if you just happen to want to throw some extra electrolyte in, then yeah, full cream milk powder is a very cheap and easy way to do that. The coconut milk powder, that's really your primary source of fats for this drink. And the reason that I go with coconut milk powder, A, I like the taste, but B, your coconut milk powder is roughly 45% medium chain triglycerides or MCT, which in the GCN drink is one of the really important ingredients. It's not the main ingredient. The maltodextrin's a main ingredient in the GCN mix, but it's the medium chain triglyceride powder that they use that gives the drink its texture, that makes it really palatable and provides an easily digested source of fats. And that's where it comes into its own. That MCT component of the coconut milk powder is more quickly and more easily digested, which means you have access to that fat-based energy a little bit faster than you do through saturated fats. And it also means that it's a little easier on your gut. You know, when you're already under stress and your gut's really possibly not wanting you to try and consume anything solid. Some people really struggle to eat at all on the bike. Doing it that way with the MCT powder is a really, really good alternative if you struggle to eat solids on the bike. It does mean that the other 55% or so is a saturated fat, similar to the full cream milk powder. But look, if you're doing the work on the bike and you're burning the energy, it doesn't really matter. All you just need to know is that, and we'll talk about it again a little bit further on, I suppose, is adjusting the mix to suit the style of riding that you do. The final ingredient is the salt. I believe GCN used standard table salt. My mix uses standard table salt.
They did.
That's a 1-to-1 ratio of sodium and chloride. Sodium obviously being a really important electrolyte alongside potassium, generally speaking, and in this drink in particular. So for people who are heavy sweaters, and as part of that sweat, they might be salty sweaters, it's really important to make sure you've got enough electrolytes, specifically sodium. And this is a really, really easy way to consume it. And the double benefit of having the sodium in there or the salt in there is that it counters the sweetness from the sugar. So you can adjust the sugar and you can adjust the salt to increase your overall energy intake without it getting too sweet. So the more sugar you throw in, typically the more salt you'd throw in to complement or counteract that. That's really the 5 ingredients. It's dead simple, dead cheap, and dead easy to make.
Yeah, so I guess for the lactose intolerant people, you can leave out that milk powder and you still get the same benefits, but you don't end up shitting yourself on the bike. And I think what you're saying with the saturated fats versus what's the other fat in there, the MCT, is that like a mono...
The MCT, medium chain. Medium chain triglyceride versus long chains.
So if you're burning that fat, you're not going to store that saturated fat anyway. And so as a result, you don't have the concerns that would normally come with consuming saturated fats versus other sorts of fats.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So, and again, something we can talk about a little bit further on, I guess, is adjusting ratios of the drink to suit the type of riding that you do. But the reason that I make the drink the way I do is because when I bother to make that drink, it is because I'm heading out for 100 Ks through the Gold Coast hinterland. So I'm not going to be anywhere near a shop for potentially 2 hours. And I'm probably going to have a couple of hills between me and any civilization. So the last thing I want to do is be stuck there going, gee, I wish I had something decent to eat.
Yeah, so I guess that sort of brings us to the next thing. So I use this at the local chop, or for people in the UK, I believe you call it chain gang. And honestly, the drink was a bit too much for that. So the reason why I took it on the ride was because I wanted to be able to vouch for whether this sat well with my stomach or not. Basically, I became the human test for this to make sure that it was up to scratch. I don't want to sit here and say, here's a really good drink that I've never used before. But it wasn't fit for purpose for that. So I think where this really appeals to people is people that are doing Audax rides, or people that are doing gravel rides or long distance rides where you might be solo, but you might be in a group. You don't really want to stop at a service station, or there might not be service stations around. And as a result, you have to be self-sufficient. And I think that's where this sort of drink comes in. I definitely undid all of the exercise benefits from that ride by chugging that drink at the end. And honestly, I would normally just drink water there. So I had to consciously think. It's the middle of winter here in Australia at the moment. Well, not the middle, but the start of winter. It's pretty cold. That was at night. I would maybe have a couple of sips of water on that ride, and I was consciously trying to drink this. I think considering what would be beneficial, are there two ingredients in here, though, that you think could be utilised across all rides? And if so, how would you play around with the ratios on those to get it to fit the purpose of what you want?
Yeah, sure. I'll quickly touch on a really, really specific use case for the drink as we've got the ingredients already. So I did Amy's Grand Fondo down in Lorna, Victoria a few years ago. And one of the things that I noted, hopefully I'll be doing it again this year, and one of the things that I noted was the horrendous queuing to get your water bottle filled or to pick up any food. So basically, I lost the best part of 3/4 of an hour stopping at a few aid stations to try and get bottles filled and just generally take a little bit of a break and fight my way through the crowds because there's, thousands and thousands and thousands of people there. And what I figured was I should have been using this drink with, a backpack because I got a nice little aero camelback that I can use. So that's my supply of pure water, and 2 bottles full of this drink mix will get me through Amy's, and I don't have to stop at all. I don't need extra food. There's enough calories in the drink to get me the 120 odd Ks, and save me potentially half an hour to 45 minutes by not having to faff around at an aid station. So that's my very specific use case.
I think it's Amy's this year is a World Champs qualifier for the Grand Fondo.
It is.
So
it is.
There's a free 45 minutes for you. That's definitely going to make the difference. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Anyone at the pointy end of the field's probably not going to be stopping anyway. But, to be able to do that, and to your point very quickly about eating on the bike, I hate mucking around, taking hands off the bike, especially, again, when you're in that scenario, you're among a couple of thousand randoms. You don't trust anybody's wheel, so why would you take your hands off the bars to put some food in your face when you can just reach down to your drink bottle?
Yep.
So, that's me. But, to your point about the ingredients and how to manipulate them, specifically when you're doing shorter rides or much more intense rides. So you'd probably eliminate all of the fat content. So you take out the coconut milk powder and you take out the full cream milk powder for what you were doing. And certainly, I'm not a nutritionist. I do need to point that out. So this is not nutritional advice. But what I would do, if we were talking ahead of you doing this again in your local shop, would probably to just use the sugar and the salt and to halve the quantity of sugar. So to have 50 grams of sugar in there, you're still going to end up with carbohydrate content that's, worth 2.5 gels, depending on exactly which gel you use. So you're getting plenty of energy, much more than you probably really need, even at 50 grams worth of sugar with no other energy content in the drink. And your sodium is going to be there because, not that you need it at this time of year in Australia, but ordinarily that will be there as an electrolyte, and to counter the sweetness that you're going to get out of all of that sugar, just to make it a bit more palatable. The coconut water would be entirely optional. I'd probably trim that down to half to maybe 125 mils of coconut water if you used it at all. And you'd have yourself, I reckon, a pretty good drink for sort of an hour of solid zone 4, 5, 6 riding, to make sure that, you had legs at the end and enough matches to burn to challenge for the line. Yeah, ditch the fats. On rides that short or rides that are that intense where your body's not wanting to burn the fats, your body's wanting to burn the carbs, it's going to go straight to your glycogen stores in your muscles, and then onto your liver. Sugar all the way.
Yeah, well, just for a comparison, I've looked up the SIS gels, and they are 36 grams of carbohydrate, 0 grams of fat, or 0.1 grams of fat. So 50 grams of sugar. They make it very clear that they've only got 1 gram of sugar in there. I think it's just because we have a bit of a negative view of sugar these days. Would that be correct? Or
yeah, so is that the beta fuel that you're looking at?
I can tell you that this is the SIS ISO Energy Go.
Yeah, okay. Because they've got a couple of different ones with different ratios of different things. Generally, they'd be using the maltodextrin, which is a little different to table sugar. I mean, it can be refined cornstarch. It can be, there are a number of sources for it. But the absorption rates are a little bit different. And strictly speaking, it's not sugar. But at the end of the day, it's a simple carbohydrate that is broken down, if it's not already in glucose form, is essentially turned into glucose, because that's what your body uses, glucose or fructose from a carb perspective, one of those two. So yeah, it doesn't matter what form it takes in the gel itself. At the end of the day, it's going to be glucose when it's absorbed into your body. So yeah, the fact that they say there's only 1 gram of sugar, it's all simple carbs.
Yeah, well, speaking of things that do not have 1 gram of sugar, another thing that we were looking at comparing this to was Gatorade. And a lot of people I know use sort of Staminade Power or Gatorade Power powder. Did you want to talk to that and why maybe you might as well just put a couple of teaspoons of sugar in your drink as opposed to using Gatorade? You know, is there science behind Gatorade, benefits, those kind of things?
Yeah, sure. Probably one thing to mention is that anybody who's sponsored by Gatorade or any of the pros or elites who use Gatorade regularly, you'd probably find if you ask them or if you look carefully, they'd be using the Gatorade Pro Mix, which is a very different thing to what you buy on the shelf in the supermarket. It's got a lot more of everything in it. It's much more in line with what you consider to be an energy replacement and an electrolyte replacement drink. The standard Gatorade that you get from the supermarket is really, and they say it even on their own website when you read the details, it's a hydration formula. So it's what they call an isotonic mix. It just makes it much more palatable than drinking plain water. And the fluid, i.e. the water, is more easily absorbed into your GI system when you consume it. So it's there from a hydration benefit perspective. It's not really there from an energy perspective, and it's not really there from an electrolyte replacement perspective. It does have a little bit of those things in it, but no, you're better off. Well, in my mind, I stopped using Gatorade 7 or 8 years ago. In my mind, you're better off sugar, salt, coconut water, and you're already miles ahead for a fraction of the price than what you're going to get out of a few scoops of Gatorade.
Yeah, we're just having a look at it's 36 grams of carbohydrates, which is equivalent to one SIS gel, drinking that entire bottle. It is 100% sucrose and 0 fructose, so you don't get that 1-to-1 ratio that you were talking about before. So yeah, I mean, it's just having a look at the ingredients. It's pretty much just water and a little bit of flavoring.
Yeah. And then, as I said, that's exactly what it's designed to do, is to help you drink the water and help make the water work faster inside your body. That's it. It's not an energy drink. It's not an electrolyte replacement.
Cool.
So,
that's it. That's all I've got for you, mate. Genuinely appreciate you jumping on. It's been enlightening, and yeah, this is 100% going to be used for my next big rides. I've got some planned over the next couple of months, but I'll put it away for the chop for sure.
Fantastic, mate. No, glad you. Oh, bless you. Glad you enjoyed the taste.
Thanks, man. Yeah, appreciate it.
So,
it was delicious, and I might make it for date night or something, just for a little bit of Anyway, have a good one, and we'll wrap up.
All right, cheers. Catch you later.
See ya. All right, so that's it from us wrapping up another video. Might take a bit of a break now, honestly. It's been a lot coming, and sort of do a bit of reflection on where we're going from here. So if you got ideas, chuck them in the comments. If you want to tell me to get fucked, chuck it in the comments. And let's roll on to 1,000. Subscribe. Do it. It helps.